I'm a wedding planner, and I am good at my job. If a client wants something, I go above and beyond. I get them what they want, especially big clients. And Miss Laura was a big client. Her family had wealth that went back to the first colonies, and it didn't look like they'd lost any in the intervening 400 years. Her family had wealth that went back to the first colonies, and it didn't look like they'd lost any in the intervening 400 years. I remember touching up my lipstick in the vanity mirror above the driver's seat and thinking to myself that this was it. I was on the cusp of 40, and I was about to break into the event planning upper echelon of 1%er weddings. It would be Miss Laura's wedding, but it would be my coronation. Sweet little Laura ushered me into her home, and we spoke at length. Her expectations were very reasonable, and she knew what she was talking about. A life of debutante balls and campaign fundraisers and 500-person Christmas parties was the curriculum she learned from. There was only one thing that Laura wanted that no other wedding planners said they could get. I want the woman who lives in the House of Pounds. I furrowed my brow. Maybe Laura wasn't as reasonable as I thought she was. Why? The crone? Why on earth do you want her there? Because she's my great aunt on my father's side, Laura said. That was news to me. I didn't know anyone who'd even met the infamous crone from the House of Pounds, and here was Laura claiming the old witch was family. May I ask why you or your father don't invite her yourselves? She pushed down the hem of her skirt at her knees, and her smile faltered. You know why they call it the House of Pounds, don't you? Of course I knew. Everyone in town knew. But I lied. I don't pay attention to that sort of thing. Okay, but you know. Laura added, more bite to her voice. I'll bet you even know the words. I involuntarily scanned for escape routes. What words? Say them, Laura said. Say the words, or I'll find someone else to plan my wedding. Women from inherited wealth have the luxury of following through with threats. Laura had been kind and gracious to me, but she also expected me to dance to her tune. So, I said the words. Welcome to the House of Pounds, where all are given just one round. First penalty's a pound of flesh, but try again, she'll take the rest. Do you know what it means? She said. This was like pulling teeth. I did not want to have this conversation, but I answered. I have an idea. Laura looked behind me, behind herself, and all around the room. I was a well-socialized woman. I knew she was about to tell me a secret. I was half right. She didn't tell me the secret, but she showed it to me. She hiked her skirt up, and part of Laura's flesh was missing. A pound's worth. If I had to guess, from the inside of her thigh. I shuddered. Laura's face reddened. She pulled her skirt back down before looking away. I thought I saw the glimmer of a tear welling in one of her eyes. She wiped her face. You see, I can't go back. I've given my pound of flesh. If I go again, she'll take the rest, I said. Laura nodded. Exactly. I have to tell you, I didn't see what the big deal was once I parked in the driveway and saw it up close. The House of Pounds was nothing more than a shabby example of Gothic revival architecture and old money homestead that had faded along with the blue in the family's blood. The House of Pounds was nothing more than a shabby example of Gothic revival architecture, an old money homestead that had faded along with the blue in the family's blood. If I had to guess, I'd say she was probably a hoarder and a cat lady. I highly doubted she deserved her reputation as an evilly mystical witch. I walked up and knocked on the door. It opened before I could knock twice. A little girl who couldn't have been older than 6 stood there in a traditional Victorian maid's outfit. "Please, come in," she said. "She's expecting you." The grade school chambermaid indicated for me to walk down the main hallway. She used her thumb to point the way because the hand she pointed with had its 4 other fingers missing. This was the creepiest way I've ever been welcomed into someone's home. But in for a penny, in for a pound. I laughed a laugh specific to my humming nerves and punny thoughts. I walked down the hallway until I saw another grade school chambermaid. She stood next to an open door through which I saw a room shadowed pitch black. This little girl was missing both of her hands. Have you ever seen a child missing a body part, let alone several? It's not just upsetting. It cores you like an apple. The closest I'd ever felt to that coring was after waking from a recurrent nightmare about my mother being torn apart by Rottweilers and thinking she might have really been mauled. My bowels felt stuffed full of lead shot and detached from my intestines. "Hello," I said, eyeing the girl's missing hands. "Are you okay?" She whispered like she was afraid someone was listening. "I have a secret to tell you." She waved one of her stumps inward. I leaned close to her and turned my ear toward her lips. I heard a man's voice say, "In for a penny, in for a pound." I turned and saw a 6-foot ghoul dressed in the same Victorian maid outfit as the 2 little girls. I screamed and turned to run, but he wrapped one of his long limbs over me from behind, pinning my arms to my body and my body to his. He covered my mouth and whispered, "Shh, shh, quiet now." I cried into his hand. "You're here to meet her, aren't you?" he said. He removed his hand so I could speak. But I couldn't. I was out of my wits with fear. "Answer me, or I'll make a pair of mittens from the flesh I cut out of your belly." I sobbed and hurriedly nodded my head. "Use your words," he said. "Yes," I said through my tears, my body shaking almost like I was having a seizure. "Yes, I'm here to meet her." He let go from behind me, and I heard him step back and away. I turned to face him, but there was no him there. It was only the grade school chambermaid. "Then, by all means." The little girl shoved me into the darkness through the open door behind my back. I went tumbling down a 45-degree angled chute. I heard inhuman voices, what might have been 50 monsters' voices, roaring and screeching at me. They called me terrible names, nonsensical names, cruelly true names. Mother of excrement, beef stew, thin-lipped spinster, drunk driver. And with every insult, I felt a sharp, hot, wet pain somewhere in my body. Like 10-penny nails being hammered into my stomach, my spine, between my toes and fingers. The pain felt like every hurt I'd ever felt puncturing my flesh again, all at once. I screamed and cried as I tumbled down the chute. It spat me out onto a basement's dirt floor. A single hanging light bulb shone over the dusty ground. I put my hands out in front of me and saw blood run in the rivulets down my arms. My blood went through my fingers and soaked into the dirt. I hung my head between my biceps. How was I going to escape? She stepped into the light, far enough to silhouette her face but not show it. I wasn't looking at her directly, but through my peripheral vision. I thought, if I looked up, I would see the face of 100 monsters, see malformed lips defame and degrade me. "Look at me," she said. I shook my head no, watching my blood dribble. From behind her, I heard the low, ticking rumble of a crocodile, and then I heard 2, and then 3, and then 100 reptilian groans bellowing at once, threatening to rupture my eardrums. I screamed, "Okay!" The crocodilian bellows stopped. I looked up. I saw a woman in a widow's black mourning dress. It covered her arms up to her wrists and her neck up to her chin. Her face was obscured by a lace black mourning veil. But even through the veil, I could see outlines of missing pieces. A quarter of a lip gone, half of one ear, a dry and angry eyeball glaring through where an eyelid used to be. "Why are you here?" she said. "Why do any of you come when you already know the words?" "I'm here because of a wedding." "Who are you marrying?" she asked. "Not my wedding, someone else's." She laughed low in her throat. "A pound of flesh for someone else's betrothal. It sounds rather like the Merchant of Venice." The Merchant of Venice, the Merchant of Venice. I thought to myself, remembering long-forgotten English classes, stories I hadn't thought of in years. "A bargain!" I screamed it out. I screamed it out again. "A bargain!" I stood up, my pulse pushing blood from my wounds till my clothes were soaked crimson. "I assert my right to bargain. I will surrender my pound of flesh, but only with consideration. I demand a contract for the exchange." I saw the ghost of a wretched smile through her veil. "I never thought I would hear it. If you assert your right to bargain, I am not one to refuse. I presume you offer up your pound of flesh?" I found power waiting in my voice. "I offer up a pound of flesh as payment on a bargain." "And what would you bargain for in exchange for your pound of flesh?" "Do you know a woman named Laura?" I asked, adding the family's last name. "I do." "And is she your grandniece?" The crone frowned. "She is." "I offer my pound of flesh in exchange for your promise to attend her upcoming wedding." She was quiet for what seemed like a very long time. She finally said, "Very well. So you accept fair terms and a villain's mind. Come then, we'll draw up the bargain. In either blood, ink, or both." Laura's wedding was a spectacular success. The crone attended, as she was contractually obligated to attend. It gave Laura great cash, and it made my reputation. Business poured in. I wasn't just planning weddings, I was bargaining for new, impossible things on behalf of wealthy clients, though what I bartered with now wasn't anything so exotic as a pound of flesh. And I was paid very, very well to do it. And anyway, by the time Laura was married, the stump where my hand used to be had healed. Mostly. Thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. A quick shout out to my patrons, Old Penguin, Rinku Star, Melissa Perez, Icy Narrates, Seven Cities Journalist, Cupcake Hips, Eric Cifuentes, Alonso, Austin My Love, Ellie Hutmeyer, Jesse Hartley, Lawrence Wallen, Mr. Sankofa, and William Hartley. I always try to link a different charity in the description, so go ahead and check that out. I'm also going to start having more things on my Patreon soon, so keep your eyes peeled. And as always, I'd love to know how I can be praying for you, so go ahead and drop a comment and let me know how I can do that. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you in the next video.